Social media crew, listen up, because this one is directed entirely at you. So whether you are a social freelancer or an agency or a social media brand manager, what if I was to tell you that your comment section, your client's comment section, is not just a big old ball ache to manage, but it could in fact be a little golden ticking time bomb of revenue opportunity? Well, in this episode of The Action Effect, I sit down with James Urquhart, who is the founder of Rupert, which is an awesome AI-powered social media assistant, which is helping brand managers and social media managers around the globe get on top of community management and make the most of revenue opportunities within those ghastly comment sections. So if you are struggling for time and struggling to navigate community management because it can be a massive drain on resource, then this is for you, because it will really help you level up your service offering if you're an agency or freelancer. And if you're a brand, it could really help you unlock those golden opportunities within your comment section. So enough of my waffle. Let's crack on with my conversation with the lovely James Urquhart, who is the founder of Rupert, the AI social media assistant. Good afternoon, James.
Good after, yeah, sorry, it's 12:05. I've just spotted afternoon. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. I'm really good, thank you. And thank you for joining us on The Action Effect. I'm super excited to chat to you today because I think the way that you have transitioned from agency owner through to software platform, tech platform provider, and social media problem solver is very apt for the brands that listen to us, the freelancers that listen to us, and our agency clients alike. So I'd love to just kick off straight away, really, and hear about your agency background, how you even identified the problems that Rupert now solves, and what Rupert's future looks like.
Okay, amazing. So I guess if I take it all the way back, so prior to Rupert, I used to own two different agencies. One was a social media agency, and we specifically worked in the paid arena. I also owned a prospect list business, which I'd ran for, it was 15 years before we exited last year. So yeah, I've been in the marketing world for a long, long time. Now, when we set up the social media agency about 6 years ago, it was because obviously the rise of GDPR and a lot of my clients' budget was naturally moving online, and a lot of our skills in the data world are very transferable in the paid social arena. So we pivoted and grew Let's Run Social very quickly, which is fantastic. But during that time, in the social space, it was amazing because obviously people are trying to use social for acquisition. They're using social to engage their community, their audience, which is amazing. And we all do it. And we do it internally, or we get an agency, or we get a freelancer to do it, or you get your kids to do it, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
What I find bizarre, and what I found bizarre, is that under every sponsored ad or organic post, you'd see a load of comments. And no brands, very few, not all, very few brands would engage with them. And I couldn't understand why. So realised that it was a resource problem, typically. Also, the platforms don't allow you, or don't help you, they don't notify you enough as they should. So I just naturally went out to market, assuming that I'd be able to find something for my clients to plug into. I just naturally assumed there'd be something there. I couldn't really find anything. There was a couple of things which were very expensive, 60 grand a year contracts, obviously not applicable to all brands. There was another something that was very specific to in the sports arena for sports stars, but again, not applicable to Joe Blogs down the road. So decided to sort of build it as an MVP, as an internal product for our own clients in the agency. And that's where the Rupert name came from, which is my dog's name. Unfortunately, passed a few weeks ago, annoyingly. Bless him. So yeah, that's how sort of Rupert came about. But as clients started using it internally, as I saw the need for it, not just across my clients, across other, agency owner friends of mine and their clients grow, started to ponder and go, this could be a thing. This could be an actual sort of product that people could go and use and buy. So that's what I did. So I decided to exit both my agencies last October. So very, very fortunate in that case. And decided, then to sort of go full gun-ho on Rupert. So Rupert does a couple of it solves a couple of problems. The first one is out of hours. So the vast majority of comments that we receive as brands are out of hours, because that's when people are online, naturally. The problem being is that we as social media managers, brand owners, whomever it be, content creators, is we're not on our phones. Well, we are. But from a work perspective, we shouldn't be on our phones really out of hours, between, outside of 9 and 5. Although we always know not everyone works 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And my team used to get questioned from clients, "Oh, have you seen this comment?" It's like, well, yeah, we did, but it's like 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. on a Sunday. Like, no. And obviously my guys would jump on it if they could do, but, it wasn't that, they're out with their kids and, just having a weekend for themselves. So Rupert helps, and the one problem it solves is the quarantine feature. So anything we would deem as, and we call it brand bashing, Rupert will quarantine in real time instantly. So rather than the brand having, to jump on it straight away, they can breathe, they can, really ponder on, actually, is this negative? How do we respond? And then you can unquarantine it and review it and then respond, rather than it just being seen by everyone straight away, which obviously in a lot of cases, when you look at some of these negative comments, a lot of them are, spammy type content, some racism, depending on who you've got in terms of some of the content you're putting out there. The charity sector, very prevalent for that. We see that a lot, especially at the moment with, things like going on the Gaza and stuff, and you see all the really, really negative. So there's that, but actually what that is doing is it's really, really affecting how your brand's seen online. If someone's on the fence of, do I purchase from this brand, and you see all this spammy type content, that is going to impact someone's decision making. And I see it often. So that's one of the first features. It does the quarantine. And then secondly, it will notify you of sales opportunities. So again, a lot of brands who are used in social for, again, acquisition, they're running these amazing campaigns, and it's, views and click-throughs. But actually, under these sponsored ads, you see all these comments of, "I'm interested," or they're tagging their friends in. And I'm sitting there seeing no responses from the brand. Yeah, there could be 5 conversions there. And if your average order value is £100, that's 500 quid.
Yeah.
Spending a day, that could be a week's worth of ad spend, or, the lifetime value of the customer might be 10 times that. So it might be £5,000 worth, of revenue, which is fantastic. But it's not something that brands are focusing on. They're focusing on the views, obviously the TikTokification, if I can say that word, with the views, which obviously all the platforms are going down. But the more you engage, the better. Your CPMs decrease. From a pay perspective, you get free reach, what I call it, and all the rest of it. So they're the 2 aspects of where Rupert is helping brands currently. And like I said, in terms of industry, we're agnostic of industry. We've got so many different brands, from Brewdog all the way up to Bent's Garden Centre we mentioned the other day on the phone to you. Local garden centre to you. So again, you've got 2 real ends of the spectrum there, of a small garden centre, and then you've got a multinational unicorn.
Definitely. No, I like that. And I think that the reason Rupert's so apt to speak to you about, and why it's so apt to speak to you in general, is that something that we talk about at Interim a lot is the increasing competition with the freelancer world. There's just lots more freelancers out there, simple as, and same with, the agency landscape has always been competitive, as you know very well, and brands obviously very competitive. And with the addition of things like AI, automation, etc., it's really tricky and can be very overwhelming for freelancers to know how to integrate that into the day-to-day, so that they're not losing their jobs, but they're not avoiding AI and not using it to its advantage for what they do. So I think where Rupert is amazing is it helps give them that leveling up of their service offering, and it helps automate stuff for them that's really valuable for their potential clients, and gives them more time to actually spend on the human interaction and the relationship building with the clients, because they've got all of that automation in the background. Is that a fair assessment of how Rupert can help, and also help internal teams as well?
Yeah, 100%, especially from a freelancer network perspective, because like you said, the freelance market is very competitive. A lot of the time it's the race to the bottom, sadly, which is, again, we're very similar to the agency world, in truth. There's some good, the bad, the ugly. Frustrating is for the good ones is that a lot of the time they'll be priced out. But actually they're pretty best for the brand, and the same in the agency world. Whereas again, if you can, is there another string to your bow that you can add? For example, Rupert, as you mentioned there, is that, what if that freelancer could say to all of their 5 or 6 clients, I now offer 24/7 comment management.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very compelling argument. Now, that brand has already got trust with the freelancer in this case. It might be a paid social or an organic social strategist or either, or both. But actually, adding that on sort of helps everyone. It helps the brand because they're safeguarded online and they're not missing out on sales opportunity from the work that you're doing. So it already, from my perspective, is it adds value to what they're doing because we know what it's like with reporting and attributing what I've done equals X, which is in the marketing world is very difficult. Although some people say they've nailed it, they haven't, as we all know. So it helps that because actually, if you are running a lot of organic and you are getting people, who are saying, I'm interested in this product, again, from a freelance perspective, that is something that they can quantify and say, look, I've produced you 12 sales opportunities this week. Here they are. And it's live, it's not on Google Ads Manager showing you, I've got these 4 conversions, you've got to go into Shopify, figure out where they've come from, or Facebook is saying, I've got 10, and we all know the trials and tribulations. This is real, live, tangible data you can look and not so much feel, but you can see through your own eyes. That's very powerful from a freelancer.
Definitely. And I think something we've spoken about before as well is that the freelancers that succeed in kind of 2025 market are ones who have a bit more commercial awareness about them. And you don't have to be an amazing salesperson to have that level of commercial awareness and know that showing ROI is a compelling argument. But having something like Rupert, where you can clearly log in and you have the stats to hand and it's demonstrable there in front of you without you having to do a load of that background work yourself, is really just genuinely really helpful.
Yeah, and also to your point around the AI side of things in the freelancer network and market, is that we have to adopt it, whether you're an agency, whether you're a freelancer, and I think there's different ways of adoption, and this is where I think the AI space, although it's fantastic, I think there's a lot of good, I think there's a lot of bad advice out there. We see especially on social, I've made 20 million quid a month because this AI agent, and he's some kid in his bedroom in his pants still, and you sort of sit there, or are you? So I think there's different ways that freelancers can adopt AI, and I think where we'll see a huge uptake is in, I'm calling them micro apps. For example, Rupert. Okay, so a micro app in my case would be Rupert solves this problem, which is comment management. You could call it community management, but typically it's comment management because not many brands in my eyes have a community, really. They say they do, but they don't. Very few do. So it's comment management. So that's the problem that Rupert is solving. Now, you could go to Sprout Social and have a social scheduler. It does centralize some of your comments, not all of them, but it doesn't do the categorization. It doesn't do the quarantine feature. It doesn't also pre-write responses in your tone of voice ready for you to review and send across. It doesn't do all that stuff. But Sprout Social is 400 quid a month.
Yeah.
But it does a lot of things. Now, it's very good at the scheduling. It's not very good at that bit.
Yeah.
Like HubSpot. HubSpot is a fantastic tool, but its suite is massive in terms of its products. But actually, we, for example, freelancers or agencies, we only need this 1 or 2 thing. But the problem is, as we well know, they've got a very good SaaS model, which is you come in free, and by the end of it, you're spending 20 grand a month and go, how did that happen? Now, it's great for HubSpot, but actually a lot of the features we don't need. So in my opinion, again, this is only my opinion, is that I think we'll see a huge resurgence of people moving away from these larger entities like the HubSpots for certain skill sets and products they don't need, and go to more micro apps. And although yes, they may be spending 10 or 20% more, if you know that Rupert is the best product or tool for that particular task because it's really helping me solve a problem, you're not fitting in a square peg in a round hole. Whereas I think a lot of the platforms are out there, especially the bigger platforms, which is great because they're amazing at what they do, and for certain size businesses, they are A1, they fit the bill. But I think the vast majority of people would get a lot more value from these micro apps. For example, let's say Rupert for comment management, or it might be another tool for Tactique for reviewing your meetings and subscribe and transcribing your online meetings. There's loads of
Yeah.
those now. See what I mean? So you're paying
Yeah.
£9 for that, you're spending £30 for that, but actually you've got these suite of tools that are really best in class.
Yeah, no, I like that actually. And I really like that term micro apps, because something that we chat to freelancers about a lot as well is that when you're in the four walls of an agency, you're very lucky that the agency buys your tech stack most of the time. When you leave that agency, working out what levels of tech stack you really need when it's coming out of your own pocket is a different story. And actually, tech stack sounds quite elaborate, but something like a micro app stack, it sounds a lot more freelancer friendly. And I totally agree with that, using a proportion of most of these platforms, because even us as an agency, and I'm sure you guys were the same, so we use Monday.com for all of our CRM. I probably use 4% of its capability, but I love it for that 4% that I do use, but I know I'm underutilizing 95% of it. But if you're a community manager and you just want to manage comments, you don't need anything else, you're just paying purely for that, and it means that your cost is lower, but you've got a very specific app, then that's a brilliant way for freelancers to differentiate themselves whilst managing costs and upskilling their offering.
Well, it's upskilling their offer, and also I think is easier to commercialize, because you can say, again, if I'm using Rupert as an example here, is I can now offer 24/7 comment management, and I can respond to a vast amount of your comments if you'd like me to, or just the customer service ones, in the tone of voice of your brand within the first 24 hours.
Yeah.
Well, you can commercialize that. Whereas at the moment, when again you've got, let's say, Monday.com, where we know they've got, even to your point, probably 4 or 5% of you're utilizing in terms of the tools and do for you, because you're already in Monday and you know it and you know what it does for you. You don't have a true concept of what the other sides of Monday can do. So it's harder for you to then go, well, how can I commercialize this? And it's not so much hard for you too, but I think we just as humans just go, I've got to learn something else. And because you're already in it's like Pipedrive. I use Pipedrive for CRM. I've used it for donkey's years. I think it's fantastic. I don't utilize it to the full, and I know I don't. But actually, I'm looking at other tools at the moment, micro-apps, which I know are probably going to be better for me for certain things. I could just do this in Pipedrive, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I think for a freelance, it's easier to commercialize it, because you can say, I've got this one specific tool for that specific task, which is going to help you, Mr. Client or Mrs. Client, opposed to, I can now do it. Oh, well, what do you mean? Oh, it's in this tool that I've had for ages. Can you that's what I'm trying to say there. And I think that's why we're going to see a huge rise in specifically the SME market, not move away from the HubSpots and the Salesforces at all, because clearly they are best in class. But I do think there's so many amazing tools out there that are a better place to help brands and agencies and freelancers do a specific task.
Yeah, no, I agree, because I think part of what puts you off that process of tool adoption or AI adoption in the first place is the myriad of choice and a myriad of expense. And it's like, as you said, Monday can do 50 million different things. And just the thought of trying to work out if it's going to do what I need it to do for what I would like it to do that's the barrier in itself, is just getting started. But if you know that your app or your kind of tech platform has such a specific utilization case, then it just takes away that mental barrier of giving it a go in the first place.
Yeah, and obviously these platforms have AI built into it. So I think why I see the rise of the micro apps coming is because you don't have to learn about AI. And for the best will in the world, ChatGPT is fantastic. Write me an email or reply to this email, or, we've all done it, or, write me a business case or write me a contract, whatever it may be, right? It's simple. But actually, we're not even touching 1% of the power that's available in these LLMs. We're not. So actually, using the apps that have done all the hard work for you, for example, like Rupert, before we went live with version 2, which is the categorization, is that I went for about 600,000 comments to understand and make sure that it was perfect for 99.99% of brands in the UK and the US, or English languages. Well, from a freelance social media manager or an agency perspective, you're not going to have that much data. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you've got so much learning before you get to the end result, which is actually now we can offer a service that we're happy to offer, because
Mm.
as we know in the freelancer and agency world, you're always a day closer to losing to a client, which is the
Yeah. Yeah.
sad reality of the world that we live in.
Yeah.
But again, how much stickier, hopefully that's the right term then,
Yeah.
how much stickier is a client if you're managing their commentary or you're offering that 24/7? Because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the issue with agencies and also the freelance network, which is churn. Churn rate is typically very high.
Mm.
And a lot of the time it's because you bring on the wrong clients, or, again, I'm sure that you've had loads of discussions on this podcast around that. But actually, again, back to these micro apps, is that I think a lot of these apps will make clients stickier for the freelance and agent like it.
Yeah.
So comment management, it might be creative. So again, using AI for your creative. So Canva's now got some great AI built into it. It's not great. I've tested it, but it'll get better. Of course, it will.
Yeah.
But again, it just means there's more output for that freelancer or that agency. And again, if you're adding more value to your client, they're less likely to leave and find an alternative.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it helps diversify a freelancer's kind of offering within a channel they already operate in. Because before in the old school days, you had your organic social people and then you paid social people generally. I know there's exceptions to the rule, but community management itself is a skill set, and it can be an entire job role. But I think something like Rupert opens up community management as a line item for, say, an organic or a paid social person who wouldn't have considered it before, for exactly the reasons that you said. Because if you've got a big brand who has continuous comments, you just won't be able to do that yourself.
The resource that you need for comment management is obscene. Like I think yesterday we mentioned it. Hopefully it was we chatted about it. So I've got one of my podcasts has a TikTok channel, and we put Michael, my editor, sort of puts the clips on there. And yesterday we had over the last 2 days on one particular TikTok, we've had over 500 comments now over a 24-hour period. Now, if you were to think that from a comment management perspective, how labor intensive that is to go through 500 comments. Now, on average, we see it takes around 3 minutes to respond to each comment. By the time you've looked at it, thought about it, and that's across the board. That's the short responses and the long ones. On average, now that's 1,500 minutes.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah. It's insane. Yeah, I mean, and especially if you're an agent out of freelancer land for a moment and into agency or brand, if you're paying someone's salary to sit there and spend that many hours just responding to comments, that's crazy.
It's mad, but again, with my Rupert hat on now, they absolutely should be, because these are people that are going out, take off the negative stuff. These are people that are engaging with you. It might be that you've put a post out about a new chair, or a holiday or a hotel, or whatever it may be. And people are going, oh, I love it. Or they're tagging their friends in. And, these people have gone out their way to basically communicate with you as a brand. Now, I think, I won't use the word disgusting. I think it's really poor that these brands are neglecting them. Because if we were to go in the brick and mortar world, which I know still exists, although I could have a rant about customer service in stores at the moment, but I won't. If you were to walk into a coffee shop today and you asked the barista or someone serving you a question and they totally ignored you, you would leave there with a bad taste in your mouth, not because of the coffee, but
maybe.
But potentially because of that experience.
Yeah.
If we move this online and someone's asking you a really nice question or a question about your products or service and you've totally ignored them, they won't leave. That brand or that consumer isn't going to have as bad an experience as they would in a brick and mortar store. I get that. But if their buying intent is there today and you lose them, they're not coming back. They will find a competitor and go somewhere else. That one purchase might be a £40 sandal. But actually, what if they come back and buy some sandals there for over half? And then the year after, there's, suddenly they buy some sunglasses, whatever it may be. Suddenly, your lifetime value then is a few £100.
Yeah.
Only because you've commented to someone. You've actually gained that acquisition and that conversion.
Yeah.
And this is why, for me, I'm more baffled and frustrated that although I get it, it's a resource problem.
Yeah.
That more brands aren't cottoning onto this. Look at some of the brands that do it very well. They
Mm.
use their comments as content. They don't even have to do anything. The um the Ryanair, is using a
Mm.
example of those. Those guys have absolutely nailed it. Their social media team don't even. They walk in. They don't need to do a content plan. They just
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
and go, right. We're going to find a load of comments today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what a
Yeah.
lovely position to be in.
Yeah.
More brands can do that,
Yeah.
but they choose not to, and I don't
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
why.
Yeah. And I think what Rupert especially does really well is that combining of community management with commercial opportunity. And that's the big thing that I think a lot of people miss from a brand side perspective, is they just think, oh, community management is just responding to comments. But actually, if we can equate that into commercial opportunity, whether that is like we were talking about yesterday, a local garden centre who's got an old lady who's had a terrible experience with her coffee or whatever, responding to her and inviting her back and saying, we're really sorry, here's 10% off next time you come, through to a Ryanair. This is actual revenue driving stuff. It's not just brand management.
No, and this is when I ran my agencies, everything we did was very commercial. So we didn't win a lot of our conversion rate was very good when people engage with us. But I used to refuse to pitch to people that didn't give me their commercials around their own business. So what their profit margins are per product. And a lot of them would say, "Oh, you don't need to know." I absolutely do, because if you want me to make you money, we might be hitting 15 ROAS and you're still making money. Well, that's pointless. It'll look great on LinkedIn. I've done 15 ROAS for this brand, but they've actually lost a load of money this year, which is pointless. So again, from a commercial perspective, you're absolutely right. Comment management isn't just there for one of the youngest members of the team just sit there and, sit there typing away and going, "Hey, Dave, how you doing?" All that stuff. It's not that. There's commercial opportunities in there. And that's what we're all here to do, whether you're a freelancer, whether you're an agency, whether you're a brand. If you're a brand, you're there to acquire new customers and keep them as customers as long as possible, and obviously hopefully increase their lifetime value. And for an agency, a freelancer, our job is to help that brand do that.
Yeah.
It's not, organic social gets a bit of a bad rap because it's, we just on camera and then put some pictures out. Obviously, that's an element to it. Absolutely it is. But there's got to be some commercialization around that. And there's so many opportunities in that comment section that, again, like I said, are definitely being missed. And what if that moved the needle every day a little bit? Well, over a year, suddenly moves the needle massively. And then from a stickiness perspective, that freelancing can go, look, we've created this many opportunities over the last 3 months through just comments alone. And I'd be like, oh, wow. Because the problem is, especially organically, if you went to your client and said, right, we've done 3 posts this week, and as always, we've had this many views and this many clicks and likes. They're all vanity. Brand owner, for the best will in the world, they'll like it.
Yeah.
What he or she wants is, excuse me, Mr. Freelancer or Mrs. Freelancer, how much you, how many opportunities? If you were to add that into your arsenal or into your reporting, I think you'll have a very different type of conversation with your client.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because I've had them, and I think you're then seen as not just a freelancer, in no disrespect. I think you're seen as a part of that business and go, God, these guys, like this person is creating us a lot of opportunity, and then maybe it's to a salesperson internally, and they don't follow up on them. But again, these tangible things and opportunities that you can show a client, opposed to, hey, you've had this many likes, and we've all seen these reports. You sit there and go,
Yeah.
Right. Or
Exactly.
I've got 2 more followers this week.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. And I think there is, in kind of outside of, outside of just social posts in general, across all of social visibility, right across to YouTube and TikTok, and the views and the follower metrics they're not taking a backseat, because I don't think they ever will, but they're certainly not being seen as the only metric to kind of report on these days, or to judge performance on.
No, they're not. And I'm a big advocate for understanding the numbers, not the big numbers, the small numbers, bottom of the
Yeah.
funnel, someone converting. And a good example is on one of my podcasts. I interviewed a guy that does marketing for. He's a freelancer and he does
Hmm.
marketing for vets. Okay, so Matt,
Okay.
he's in this actually, and this podcast didn't actually perform very well in
Hmm.
terms of views. So we probably had 60, 70 views, so not a lot. And this wasn't via YouTube, this was via sort of Spotify and all the rest of
Hmm.
it. And but we had one lead who said, "Oh, can I speak to Matt?"
Hmm.
He actually converted him. So that's
Yeah.
one conversion, but I don't actually know what the commercial arrangement was in the end. But he had a meeting with Matt,
Yeah.
and that was me and Matt just chatting for 45 minutes, similar to we are today, about how he's helped vets, the vet market, how it's hard to, obviously, the vet market's very interesting at the moment. But
Hmm.
that one veterinary practice went, I'd like to speak to Matt.
Hmm.
That's the metric you should be looking at, not because you could look at that and go, oh, 70 views, that's pants. It is. But actually, they've got a conversion there. And let's say
Yeah.
Matt's charging them £1 a month. Well, from
Mm.
those 70, you've revenued 12 grand a year client there. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
incredible, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. It's completely. It's exactly that. And a lot of the big, legitimate, really good influencers on YouTube are, or kind of social as a whole, but YouTube and podcasting are saying exactly that. Micro audiences that are highly engaged are so much more valuable than someone who's got, a million views and just no real tangible commercial return on it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think these sort of these micro audiences, and they're highly engaged, whether it be about Facebook ads, TikTok, organic, whatever it is. I think the agency world is changing quite dramatically at the moment, and not
Yeah.
just because of AI. I think brands are sick of paying for poor results.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
and I think they're not interested now in the big logos. We're going to work with not so much the density of the world because they have a very different audience, but some of these sort of well-known agencies out there, and I don't think they're performing. I used to see all the
Mm.
we had a lot of nice accounts who we'd won through a lot bigger brands, and they said the experience was really poor, really, really
Mm.
poor. And the only reason we won them is because we went through the numbers and went into them.
Yeah.
And I think the agency model needs to change. I think AI is going to definitely help that. But
Mm.
freelancers now have such an opportunity to make a vast amount of money because, again, if you're able to use tools or really implement AI into your working day or week for a
Mm.
client, whether it be reporting, whether it be just replying to emails, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
you can create a very, very, very good business there.
Yeah.
And it might be you and a couple of, I don't know if these are good or bad to speak about on these podcasts, but VAs,
Hmm. Yeah.
these are fantastic opportunities. You could.
Hmm.
I know a friend of mine who runs a Facebook ad consultancy where he actually runs ads with the clients rather than just sort of taking them on as a client. It's a one-on-one consultancy. So
Hmm.
the the brand in this case would be on the call with my friend who runs the ads together. So
Yeah.
it's not like we're doing it for you; we're doing it together as a collective. And he
Mm.
charges 50 an hour. His
Yeah.
diary is full up. His diary is full up every single
Hmm.
day, and he does about 35 grand a month. It's
Yeah.
him, one other person in the UK, and a VA.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A
It's
lot of
nuts,
it
isn't it?
a lot of it's AI, all
Yeah.
around it, and it's what an amazing model. But a lot of his clientele, it's really interesting, is that they love this because they don't want just to give the keys to the castle to
Hmm.
an agency or freelancer on the proviso that I trust them. It's not that we don't
Yeah.
trust agencies and freelancers, but it's a really interesting time at the moment. I think if you can nail, and you don't need loads of clients. It's the other thing with
Hmm.
freelancers. I'm sure you speak about on here a lot, is that you've got these grand ambitions to be, these massive agency, but it's better the devil you know, I have to say.
Yeah.
I think if you can get a dozen clients, and again, I don't know these figures are correct, but let's say a dozen clients and they're all engaged, they're built, you're built into their business and they're sticky and commercially it works for them, it works for you. You can have a very, very, very nice life
Hmm.
and not worry about employing loads of staff because agencies are tough.
Yeah.
I ran quite a tight ship with with our margins, and a lot of my friends are still in this world now, and they never see the profit because they're single digit profits and late payers and sometimes no payers. Suddenly you're just chasing, the cash, and actually you then never see your profit, which is really scary and actually quite sad, because a lot of agencies do a lot of very good work for their clients. But this is why AI is so important, is that if you can implement it, you don't need another 4 staff on your headcount. Actually, that could be taken up by something else. And it's not that none of us on here are advocating for people, not employing people at all. It's not that. It's just, if you looked at the agency model over the last 5 years that I was in it, I couldn't believe some of the stories and some of the books that I saw of friends of mine, and looked at their cash flow and go, you're a month away from going under.
Yeah.
So scary. So I think that's where AI can be absolutely amazing. And I think, brands out there, agencies, freelancers, I think you've got to adopt it, whether it be really understand it yourself, which obviously takes time and money, or it's built within a system that you're already using, or alternatively, again, where I believe a lot of freelancers and agencies and brands will go, is finding a specific tool for a certain task. And again, sort of Rupert fits that mold with those.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's because the freelancers and the agencies who are adopting AI are the ones who are kind of going to survive and do the best. And we kind of frame it as that the market isn't any harder than it used to be. It's just evolved considerably. It's always hard. It's always going to be hard, but it's also always going to evolve. But the tricky thing as a freelancer is when you're, a lot of the time booked, kind of your time is your money, literally. You have to book out that time to do your own R&D and to work out how you can integrate AI into your processes, so that if clients do say, okay, so what's your thoughts on AI? Is it going to steal your job? All of that stuff. You have some form of argument. But to even start that process is really daunting, unless you have something like a Rupert that is a single purpose AI process automation thing that you can very quickly understand how it helps.
And also, to your point there, is time is money. Well, actually, this isn't the case with Rupert, because it's a tool that's working without you being on the tools.
Yeah,
so you're
exactly.
in it day to day, because, even if I know some people that are using Rupert from an agency perspective, and they're charging their clients a vast amount more. Amazing.
Yeah.
I've got a client, they're happy, brand's happy, everyone's happy.
That's all that matters. Yeah.
All that matters. Well, actually, let's say that I was charging this particular freelancer £90 a month, but they were saying to their client offer, for £150 or £200 or £250 a month, I can make sure that your brand is safe across all your social channels.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's trust there. It's just a simple conversation with a client. Yeah, no, of course I don't do that. Well, they're profiting then £100 extra a month. Well, that's £200 a year. And they're not doing it, but it's not money that they would be on the tools doing the do. Yeah. It's just something else they can add to their portfolio and go, now offer that, and then making a margin on it, which is amazing. So again, this is why I believe a lot of these micro apps will really help freelancers become more sticky, but also give them the ability to earn money when, I hate the phrase, when you're sleeping.
I know what you mean though.
Yeah, but I do. That's where I think some of these apps can really, really help.
No, I agree. And I guess it leads nicely onto it would be great to hear more about how Rupert's actually powered. Like, what is it behind the scenes, and how, I know it does really help, but I've seen it and I absolutely love it. I think there's a huge space for it in the market. But is it automation? Do you class it as AI? Give us a bit of insight into the workings of it.
So it's taken a long time to get off the ground. The reality is that is because, unfortunately, the social media platforms have been disapproving my APIs for quite a while. So it took me a long time to get it through, but we got it through in the end. So Rupert will very simply, we'll use the APIs to pull the data across any accounts that are connected. And then once we receive that comment, we will then, using AI, and again, the learnings on the 600,000 from when we went live with V2, it will categorize them into one of 6 categories using AI. So customer service, sales opportunities, positive, negative, trolling, or general interest. Once it then categorizes them into one of 6 categories, and obviously this happens in less than a second, so it's very interesting. It will then also prompt a response. So it will pre-write a response in the tone of brand of the voice. Again, using AI, using the 600,000 data points that we had, to then it will look at the post, the brand, the commenter, the comment, and create a response that we feel, or Rupert feels, is in the tone of voice of the brand, but more importantly, it's going to give the user, that person that's written the comment, the response they want. So it might be a customer service question around delivery, a certain product. It'll put the link in there for you, so you don't have to put in the link, but it's all powered by AI. So, but based on those learnings. So we've got the 600,000 data points in the back end using as a data pool to search from.
Yeah.
And also what we do also have then a prompt, which is probably as big as this booth I'm in now. So the reason why the prompt, because it is a massive prompt, all these AI
of course.
use prompts. The reason why it took so long to get from V1 to V2 is because you've got to make sure it's applicable for every brand. And what I also want to do is that I didn't want anyone using Rupert for anything untowards. So I didn't want brands to get hold of this to go, oh, I can sell dodgy products and I can use Rupert to sort of just quarantine the negative. I didn't want that. So what in the background within the prompt is we've got things like health escalation. So if people start using it for, I can cure cancer. Really extreme example there, but I didn't want any of that happening. So there's a lot of detail in the background. So it's not just prompting a response based on the URL or the website. There's some logic behind it as a human going, well, no, of course you don't cure cancer with this pill. So we wouldn't, and that would be then flagged to me. So in the back end, we've got a very large prompt within the prompt around the health escalations. And also things like racism, trolling, spam. Spam happens a lot, as you can imagine. Spam is quite difficult because obviously you've got to make sure that it's within the context of the post. You've got to make sure that you're not quarantining stuff and hiding stuff for the sake of it, which is why you need so many data points to look at. But like I said, that's taken us 2 years to get from where we are then to now. To your point earlier, how do freelancers and agencies adopt AI if they don't have the time? Because it's an R&D perspective, isn't it? Well, you can't. You can't say, oh, we're going to develop something and be ready in a year even or 6. So, we don't have the resource because, a lot of time, unfortunately, the profits aren't there for it. So, but hopefully that explains a little bit. It's just an AI machine, really. And the more data we get in, obviously, the more it's learning and the more people amend the responses. So, for example, like Touchstone Essentials are a brand in the US who have been using Rupert now probably since day one. They actually heard about me on a podcast, actually. David,
no way.
Yeah, really weird. Rupert wasn't even live, and I went on the staging site, and he had created an account and started paying. Really bizarre. I don't even know how to do it. Honestly, I don't even know how to do it. But what I did in the end, it was a podcast. Him and his team have been using it, our longest serving. And they love it, but they amend the responses a little bit. Now they've amended them so much, they're happy with the responses. So what they want the iteration of Rupert will be, can it auto respond? Now I've not turned that feature on just yet, so you still need to go on and actually review the response. But even interesting yesterday, so another brand who were just testing it called Days Out with the Kids, who are a brand in Birmingham. Sorry, just getting the messaging up now. So they're in their sort of 30-day free trial phase. And Isabel actually texted me yesterday going, hey, question from our social media manager. Once we've nailed the tone of voice, can we automate Rupert to reply to the comments without having to approve them? Maybe like 5 minutes after each comment, which was one of the things in our roadmap. So it's really interesting is that once you trust it, and they're a few days in going, God, this is really maybe tweak a little bit of things. They just want it to auto respond. So that's where we'll go in the future. But at the moment, I just want to make sure that it's amazing, and I can sleep at night, ensure that these are responding correctly. So
no, I think that's kind of what we touched on yesterday, and earlier in the podcast today, is that combination of human with AI is the sweet spot, because there's always going to be, I think anyway, that fear around allowing automation just to get on with everything by itself. Whereas if you can have the automation and the AI to crunch so much data that would usually take you forever, categorize it and whatever, then you've still got that human intervention to A, respond, but B, spot commercial opportunities like we mentioned before, but having that strategic brain to spot them, and also tweak things like tone of voice in the responses, etc. So then the AI can learn better, so that it can start to auto respond to some stuff, but not everything.
Exactly. So that's what one of the features we are looking at is the auto responding is in our roadmap, but actually it might be that you only respond to maybe customer service questions, and actually in the back end settings you can say, right, you can auto respond within 5 minutes to sales ops and customer service, but you won't respond to general interest or negative or positive potentially.
Yeah.
Again, this is in the roadmap, but it's nice to see that people are already early on in their journey on Rupert, and obviously a lot further on some of them, which they're like, we trust this now. Can we take the, essentially the handbrake off and just let it run? Which is amazing from my perspective, because it's like, I see this working, but it's the living daylights out of me.
Yeah, I think it probably scares the living daylights out of most people, as AI does in general. But no, I think that's great, and it kind of leads us on to a really nice place to tie things up in general with it. But I think the reason, to allude to again, why I wanted to speak to you, is because within this myriad of the AI market, stuff feels like it's just being created for the sake of it being created and just being able to be called AI, whereas Rupert is solving a problem, which I love.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools out there, and there's some really good tools. There are
Yeah.
really.
Oh, yeah.
I met a founder yesterday actually from Manchester who's built a tool for actually the social media buyers to help them build more ads. It was a great little tool, really good. He's a developer himself, so he's built it. Great, solves a problem. I've seen it. But then you see, again, on TikTok, where I sort of mostly reside in terms of social, I see, obviously it hits my feed, is that, there's these girls creating these apps and their AI, and you sort of sit there going, well, who's going to buy it? Like, what's the problem they're solving? Like, to your point, what's the problem they're solving? And, that for me is where, again, to your point, is that, a lot of these platforms, apps, SaaS businesses are being created because they're so easy to create now if you're a developer. But the problem, what is interesting is that even though a lot of apps are being built via AI, so they're actually building the apps via AI. When we've done some testing with, building code ourselves for Rupert, the volume of human intervention we've had to put in to then get it ready to actually go live is scary. So I think, and this is where, I hope this isn't the case, but, I don't think I hope people aren't going in, maybe quitting their jobs and going, oh, I can create this app overnight because this guy on TikTok or this girl on TikTok has said so. Because we've tested it, with my development house, and we've gone, oh, this is brilliant. This can save us so much time and or money. And then we've tried to implement it and gone, oh no, we did it with a login. We've got a new login, a new register login form, which we built on AI, and it's taken the guys 7 hours to tweak it. If the guys had built it from scratch, it would have about been the same.
Yeah. And I'm sure over time it will get better, but you still always need that human checkpoint.
Yeah, 100%.
You need that level of experience and intervention to make sure it really does fully, sort itself out. And even once it does get better, when stuff breaks, you still need someone to use the AI to fix the problem. So it's like, I think it's just the evolution of the job spec as opposed to the dying of the jobs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, the amount of jobs that are going to come out in the next 5 years, which will be prompt engineers, people of that nature, I think will be huge. Even ourselves, we'll at some point have to bring in a AI engineer to constantly evolve the platform. We'll need that because obviously you've got, and the other thing is there's so many different LLMs out there. You've got Open AI, you've got what you call it, Google, Facebook's got their own there's so many out there. Claude, all of them are great, but they're very different. I've tested them all for Rupert, and I was shocked of how different they were. Now that was a year ago, so we're to put into context, and again to your point around learning AI and all the rest of it, every 3 months we do an update and we test what current LLM we're using versus everyone on the market and seeing if there's a better one. At the moment, we've not seen that. But again, we've got to do that every 3 months because I want to make sure that we are as close to ahead as the game as possible. I'd like to every month, ideally, because it's moving and it's so rapidly evolving. But every quarter at the moment is what we're able to do. But again, if you look at that time management perspective, we're able to do that because that's our job. If you're an agent or freelancer having to go, okay, do I do Claude? Do I use ChatGPT? Do I use this? Suddenly, Gemini, you'll, well, how long is it going to take?
Yeah.
All of those for that one thing that you needed doing.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It all comes back to that kind of concept of the micro app.
Yeah, that's my opinion, but I might be wrong. Who knows?
Hopefully not, but no, especially as you own one. Yeah, but no, I agree. I think it's great, and I think it does so much for the freelancer landscape and agencies and brands. But it makes what can feel like a very daunting topic to even start to address as a freelancer a lot more accessible, and that's why I was really keen to speak to you. So to wrap things up, give people a digest of where they can find you, where they can find Rupert, and we'll make sure that we link everything in the comments.
So my name is James Urquhart. My spelling is, you'll have to look below and spell it because it's quite but if you put it on LinkedIn, you'll find me very quickly. I'm the comment guy, as I've myself. The only annoying thing with that is I have to respond to every single comment now. I think I mentioned this yesterday. You've got everyone, so I can't not. In terms of Rupert, if you'd like to give Rupert a go, it's rupert.digital. You can create an account and connect a couple of pages for free for 30 days and just test it. One of the other things that we'll leave with is when you first connect your accounts, it'll pull in the last 250 comments. And the reason why I've done that is because to show what's being missed, because actually what you find is that people have a preconceived idea of how many comments they have or haven't received, or actually the context around them. You pull them and they go, oh, okay, I've missed these. And you go like, not a I told you so, but you're very surprised. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, pretty active, and then rupert.digital for across all our socials. Obviously, if it's something you'd like to try, give it a go, or alternative, reach out to me and I can give you a demo.
Nice one. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's really, really interesting. And I think it's going to help a lot of freelancers and brands and agency teams adopt a little bit of AI without feeling totally overwhelmed by the whole process. So thank you for chatting to me, James.
Amazing. Well, thank you for having me.
No worries. Thanks very much.